talk about multi-dimensional arrays. Last week we have seen one-dimensional array, in the last class. So to study about multi-dimensional array, you should first have an idea of uh, what is an array and one-dimensional array and how we process the array by using the loops, that is a for loop. So based on that idea, we'll continue here now the multi-dimensional array. In this we are going to discuss two-dimensional array. To start with, the motivation for this discussion is, for example, let's that you want to record distance between the cities, okay, in a particular country. So from city to city, what is the difference? Okay, so if you want to record a table of this type, for example, as you can see on the screen, a table of this type, like you see on the screen. So how it is possible to record it? So in programming, we have something called two-dimensional array that can be used to record the tables or matrices. You can recall the matrices from mathematics, the matrices which is used to record the data or the values in a fashion of rows and columns. Okay, that we can do it here in programming by using multi-dimensional array or in a specific two-dimensional array. So we can record this table completely in a two-dimensional array in this fashion. So where you see that this is in terms of rows and columns, okay, in a form of table or in a form of matrix. So the objectives of this discussion is to give you an idea about a two-dimensional array, how to declare a two-dimensional array, how to create an array, how we can access the elements of the array, how we can enter the elements to the two-dimensional array, some operations with the two-dimensional array like displaying array, summing the elements of array, finding a particular element in the array, or finding maximum or minimum element in the array. So these are some operations that we are going to discuss today, inshallah, with in this topic, multi-dimensional array. We also see that how to pass a two-dimensional array to methods. Okay, so that's what these objectives. To start with, the creating and declaring and creating of two-dimensional array, it is same as a single-dimensional array what we have studied in the last discussion. So but the only difference is the array, the brackets what you use to represent the array variable is we are going to use the two of them. So for example, here the data type and the two dimensions and the variable name. Okay, we declare it and we create it, and when we create it with a new operator, new data type of the two dimensions, the size of two dimensions, this is the size of the rows and this is the size of the columns. Okay, the rows and the columns, we can put these two in a single statement in this fashion: data type, the array variable name array is equal to new data type of the size, the rows and the columns, or it can also be put in this fashion. So usually we prefer to go for this first type, the data type, and then we specify the next variable is an array of two dimensions, and then we specify what is the type and what is the size, the type and the size. So for example, let's say that we want to create an array called scores with 12 rows and 50 columns. So it is very simple, like int the two dimensions, that says it is a two-dimensional variable, scores is equal to new int of this row size and the column size. So this gives a two-dimensional array of 12 rows and 50 columns. Fine. So in Java we can do this, we can create this. Let me test this with the NetBeans. New project. I'll create a new project here. I'll name it as multi-dimension multi-D array. Okay. Fine. So this is our main method. So here we can declare a multi-dimensional array for integer of type integer, for example, int the multi-dimension, the name of the array. For example, let's say scores is equal to new int of the number of rows. For example, let's say I give 3 rows and the number of columns, 4 columns. So this array, this is an array, a two-dimensional array with the name called scores, and which has 3 rows and 4 columns. 3 rows and 4 columns. Right? So in this fashion we can create arrays in Java. Okay. And accessing the elements of these arrays is also through the index. So the index, we all know that in Java the index starts from 0. So the row index and the column index we have to give to access any particular element. Okay, so we have to use 2 indices here. One is for the row, the other is for the column. So when we see the matrix or a table, we see the rows and the columns. So to find a particular element, we see the row number and the column number. So we get the particular element. Fine. So for example, if I say scores of 3, 6, it means that the 4th row and the 7th column, 4th row and the 7th column. Or we can try this in NetBeans, try to print this one, system.out.println of scores of the first row and the first column. So what is the value in the first row and the first column that we want to print? Basically, when we create an integer array, the default values will be 0. So we are supposed to get 0 value here, or we get the 0 value as an output. Okay, we can assign the value using these indexes, like scores of 0, 0 is 1. Now let us try to print this one and see what we get is 1. So the first index specifies the row number and the second index specifies the column number. So this is an illustration for the two-dimensional array. The first one is an array of 5 cross 5, or 5 rows and 5 columns, as you can see, starting from 0 to 4 number of rows, and the columns from 0 to 4, that is 5 rows and 5 columns. Here it is also 5 rows 5 columns, and here what we are doing is we are adding an element at the 3rd row, the 2nd column, 7. So we go to the 3rd row with the index 2 and the 2nd column with the index 1, the value 7. We are setting the value 7. At the time of creating an array, we can also initialize the value to the array in this fashion, like as you can see over here. So these are the rows and its columns. So this will create an array of this type. Okay, so like what you create, how you create a one-dimensional array in one-dimensional array. You can create it at the time of declaring the array. You can initialize the array. Similarly, in two-dimensional array also, you can initialize the array at the time of declaration, as you can see over here. Okay, now coming to the length of the array. Now here we have 2 lengths. One is the row length and the column length. The row length is the number of rows and the column length is the number of columns in that particular row. So we have 2 lengths here. So first, basically when we say array.length, okay, we get the row length. The row length. For example, let me say scores scores dot length. Now what I get is scores dot length is the row length. How many rows I have in this scores array. So you see that I have 3 rows. Okay, let me update these rows to 6 and you can see that I have 6 rows. Fine. So this length will give you the array name dot length will give you the number of rows. Now how we can get the number of columns is that you have to specify the row number dot length will give you the column length. So for example, system dot out dot println scores of 0, this is the first row, dot length will give us the first row length. So what is the first row length is 4, that is the number of the columns of the first row is 4. Like this, the columns of second row, this is also 4. Okay, like this column of third row, fourth row, fifth row, sixth row is all 4 because we have all 4 columns. Fine. So to get the row length, we just say the array name dot length. To get the column length, we say the row dot length. Okay, so we have to specify the row dot length. So you see that how it is. So these are the number of rows. For example, X is an array of type integer and with 3 rows and 4 columns. So these are the rows. So X dot length, it is the number of rows. Whereas X of 0, the first row dot length is the number of columns in the first row. X of 1 dot length, number of columns in the second row. X of 2 dot length, number of columns in the third row. So this is how we get the length of the rows and the columns, or in general the length of the two-dimensional array. Okay, we have another option in this two-dimensional array that we can keep the length of the columns in every row different. So that type of an array we call it as an Reg array. So Reg arrays are the arrays where the rows has different size of columns. As for example, over here you can see the first row, the length is 5, the second row length is 4, third row length is 3, the fourth row length is 2, fifth row length is 1. So as you can see that the lengths over here are different. The lengths are different here. Fine. So we can have such type of array in Java which is called Reg arrays. So we can try this Reg arrays over here. For example, let me declare an array of type integer int of, let's say it is my 2d is equal to, so I'll specify the first row 4 5, this is my first row, then my second row 1 2 3 4, then my third row 1 2 3, then my fourth row 1 2. Okay, so this is a 2D array. Now next we talk about next we want to see the length of the array. So says for example system dot out dot println of the length of my 2D arrays plus my 2D dot length. Okay, so this will give you the length of the two-dimensional array. Okay, that is my 2D array. So now you can see the length is 4. Okay, now the length of every column in this is different, as we can see. So if you want to check this, you can check by printing the length or my 2D of 0 dot length. Okay, or let me print for all by using a for loop for int I equals 0, I less than my 2d dot length I plus plus. So print my 2d of I dot length of row is so you can see the length of the 0th row, that is the first row, is 5. The length of the second row is 4, 3, 2. So you can see that the row lengths are different here. The column lengths are different for every row. Okay. So this type of array we can have in Java, and such type of array we call it as an Reg array. Okay. Initializing two-dimensional array with the input values, like we want to enter the input for the two-dimensional array, we can do that just by taking the scanner object and by using two for loops, one for the rows, the second for the column. Okay, one for the rows and the second for the column. So let me just enter the input for the scores from the user. So this is a score of 3 cross 3 table. Okay, because I need to have an import statement here, import java.util.scanner, and the next I'll create a scanner object. Scanner input is equal to new scanner of system.in, and now I ask the user to enter the array elements, println enter array elements, and now we got to use two for loops, one for the rows, int row is equal to 0, row less than scores dot length row plus plus. This is for the row. The second is for the column, because we have to go first row, and then in the first row all the columns, then second row, then in the second row all the columns. So we are going to use nested looping here. So column int column equals 0, column less than scores of scores of row dot length column plus plus. Now we take the input into scores of row column is equal to input dot next int. Okay, so here what happens is when it starts, it goes first row 0 less than the length, true. It will go for the column 0 less than the row length, then it will go for row 0 and column 0, the first element. Then it will go for the inner loop, increment the column, row 0 column 1. So it will go like this. So first row all the columns, then second row all the columns, then third row all the columns. So it will be going row by row, filling row by row, 3 cross 3 matrix. So totally 9 elements you are going to enter. So you can see, for example, enter the elements. So I try to enter here total of 9 elements. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all the elements are entered, but we are not displaying the matrix here, or the scores array. So to display the scores array, we have to write again two for loops to display the same. Okay, so we write for loop for int row equals 0, row less than scores dot length, row plus plus, and for int column equals 0, column less than scores of row dot length, column plus plus. Now we print this one, system dot out dot println of scores of row and column. Okay, let me put a bracket here. System dot out dot println. Okay, this will display the say it is not println as print, so that it will come in the matrix with the space. Okay, so let us run this one and see. Enter the elements 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you got the matrix here, you can see. Okay, all the elements. The first row is filled first 1, 2, 3, then the second row 4, 5, 6, then the third row 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is how the rows are or the matrix is filled, and we can display the matrix. Okay, so printing the matrix, again we use the two for loops, one for the row, the other is for the column. So here in this presentation, what you see, that row is I for loop and the column is j for loop. Fine. Okay, we can calculate the sum of all the elements, of course, very easy, like what we did to calculate the sum of one dimensional array, but we use the two for loops and we add every element to the sum variable. Initially sum variable is 0, so of course it also need the two for loops, and you just take a variable int sum equals 0, and now you write two for loops for int I equals 0, I less than scores dot length, I plus plus. Now I am using I and j, I for row and j for column. For int j equals 0, j less than scores of I dot length, j plus plus, sum plus equals scores of ij. This is equal to sum is equal to sum plus scores of ij. Okay. This is a shorthand addition. Okay, so finally we can print the sum, system dot out dot println the sum of scores is plus sum. So first we let us enter the elements. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The sum is 38. Okay, so this is addition of all the elements. Fine, that is called the sum of elements. We can also search an element inside the matrix. Okay, inside a two-dimensional matrix, so you have to give the element and search this element and where is the location. Fine, so we'll do it here, searching an element. Fine, it is written a method over here to find search an element. Simply we can use what is the search element. Let's say search element let's write a method for that. Public int static int search 2d of int a is an array now, and int k. So we want to search k in a. Okay, so again we do two for loops. Int I is equal to 0, I less than a dot length I plus plus, and for int j equals 0, j less than a of I dot length j plus plus. Now if a of I and j is equal to k, so we have to return the location. Okay, or we can print the location, or we can return the location, that is which row and which column. Fine. So either we can return a location. So if you are returning a location, you have to return as an array because you are returning two values, or you can simply print the location. Okay, so you can say, for example, let's say that flag equals, or let's say, yeah, flag equals true. So I have to take a flag variable here of type boolean flag equals false initially. Okay, so it becomes, sorry, this is spelling mistake here, flag equals true. Okay, so if the element not found, the flag remains false. So we check if flag, and we say system dot out dot println element found at I plus 1 plus 1 row plus j plus 1 column. Okay, else say system dot out dot println element not found. Okay, now here in this case we are not returning anything from here, so let us make this as void because we are printing the result in the function itself. Now to search an element, and this is scores, so we have to call search 2d of the scores, comma, the element what we want to search. Like say for example we want to search 8. Okay, so now let us run this and see how this works. So enter the elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sum is 45. Oh, okay, there is some error. Okay, so I and j, you have to declare it I is equal to 0, I comma j, and we have to take out over here. So hopefully now it will work fine. Okay, good. hopefully it will work fine now. 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Yeah, so 8 found at the fourth row, fourth column. I'm sorry, 1 2 3 should be third or third column. Okay, let us take out this. So this flag equals true, and we got to break this. Okay, so break. Okay, this will help us. Okay, so element third row, this is the here. So element found at this location. So this is how what we can find an element, or we can search an element. Other than this, we can calculate the maximum of two-dimensional arrays, that is maximum element in both the arrays. Okay, so this is a call for this, that we check the every element of A with the element of B, and which is the greater will be assigned to C. So finally C will have the maximum element array, two-dimensional array. Fine. So I can also find two-dimensional array, find any integer, count the number of times an integer present in a two-dimensional array. Okay, so it means how many times 2 is present or 3 is present, something like this. Okay, so that we can also find with by using the method find 2D. Sum the rows in a two-dimensional array. So here we want to just sum the rows. I mean, we want to sum only the rows. Every row, what is the sum of every row? So it is also simple that we have to store that the result in an array, because we are summing the rows. So if it is 3 rows, we get 3 values. So 3 values, to store 3 values, we need to take the array. So here we take the array row sum. Okay, and we process the two-dimensional array by using row loop and the column loop, that is I and j loop, and every ij we add to row of sum of I. Okay, the first row, then sum of I the second row, sum of I the third row, we add ij for the every row. Okay, so for example it can be something like this. Yeah, let me just do it here. I'll take int sum is equal to new int of scores dot length. Now after this, what happened to this? Okay, sum is already defined here. So let me say this as a row sum. Okay, so we do for loop, 2 for loops. For int I is equal to 0, I less than scores dot length, and I plus plus, and for int j is equal to 0, j less than scores of I dot length and j plus plus. Then we say row sum of I is equal to scores of I and j. Okay, then you can print the row sum. System dot out dot println the sum of each row in scores is. So how do we print an array? We have to use a for loop. For int I is equal to 0, I less than row sum dot length, I plus plus, and we print system dot out dot println of row sum of I. So we are printing an array. So let me comment this so that we'll not get confused. from here till here. We keep only printing the arrays. And row sum. Okay, we got this here, row sum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the elements. So you got these are the 3 rows. The first row sum is, I'm sorry, there is a mistake over here, I believe. Yeah, we did not add it over here. Row sum plus equals. Yeah, we are missing plus here. So that's why it is not getting the result. So let us run now and check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the elements. The first row sum is 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. It is 6. The second row 9 plus 6 15. The third row is 24. It's here. Okay. So we can calculate the sum of the each rows here. Sum of the columns can also be calculated like sum of the rows. Fine. So that can also be calculated. So you can see the code over here. You can do this code again in NetBeans or in Eclipse to calculate the sum of the columns. Fine. Okay. So this is all about the two-dimensional array. The next we're going to talk about the scope of declaration. We have discussed this before, the scope of the declaration, the scope of a variable. Fine. So we have discussed this before, but we just recall it. Say for example, what is the scope of the declaration? So wherever we declare any attribute or for example any variable, so the scope of that variable is in that block or in that function or in that for loop or in that loop or in that block. So for example, if we declare the I variable in a for loop, like for example for int I equals 0, I less than scores dot length I plus plus. Now this I is which inside this for loop, starting from the for loop till the end of the for loop. Once the for loop is finished, this I is finished. This I, you cannot use it outside the for loop. So the scope of the I variable here is inside the for loop. So like this, if you take any variable inside a block or a function or a method or inside any structure like if or for block, then that will be only in that block, available only in that block, and you cannot use that outside the block. Fine. So that is called the scope of the declaration. So for example, we see that here let's say this is a class called a scope. We declare a field variable x is equal to 1. This is like a global variable to the class. So this x is available anywhere in the class, and this class is scope. So it is called a global variable or a field variable. Now let us declare write a method called useLocal where we declare another x. Okay. Now here comes this x is not equal to this x. They are different. And this x is global and this is local to the function useLocal. So when it comes here, we declare a new x again here. This is shadowing this variable, and in this method this x is used. useLocal x, this x is equal to 25 is used to print here, to increment here, and to print here. Now this is the end of the useLocal. Now next we start another method useField, and then we say system.out.println x. This will use the field x, which is the global x. Okay, this will use the global x here. Okay, so whatever we modify the x here, we multiply x with 10, x becomes 10. That 10 will be here. So that is again for the global one. Okay, so because this is global one, so here in this use field we are not declaring x, so it's going to use the global one. Whereas in useLocal we declare x, so it's going to use the local one. If you don't declare the local one, then you can use the global one. Fine. So let's test this code. let's say for example system.out.print field x is 1, because the program runs start from here, main method, field x in n is 1, then x equal 5. Now this is shadowing the field x, it is covering the field x. Now local x is 5. Then you call use local. In the use local you are printing x, which is local x 25, increment it again and print again 26. Okay, so 25, 26. Again comes use field. Now when it comes use field, is going to use the use field x, which is 1, and so it will print 1, multiply by 10, it becomes 10, and print 10, so 110. And then use local. Local is again 25, 26. Field is 10 now because we multiplied it again. At the end, the local is again what? 5. So at the end, local is 5 again. Okay. So this will show. This shows like the scope of the variable where we declare, and how it is available in the blocks, in the methods. Fine. So this is all what we have for today's discussion. I hope this will be useful discussion for you in knowing about the multidimensional arrays and how to create a multidimensional arrays, how to initialize it, how to do some operations with the multidimensional array. So this is all what we have for multidimensional array, and the small topic on scope of the variable. Fine. So I wish this video will help you in understanding this topic in Java language. I wish you all the best for your future, and thank you very much. See you with another discussion.